The next First Lady of the United States, Elizabeth Dole.
Thank you so much.
Meet Elizabeth Dole.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
She's charming.
I like to get up close and have a conversation with you.
She's accomplished.
And I am planning to go back to the Red Cross as president when my husband's elected president.
She's nice.
You are so sweet, isn't she pretty?
And all that matters when you're the candidate's wife. But this year, what seems to matter most is that she's not Hillary.
She will not be in charge of health care. She'll not be in charge of health care. She'll not be in charge of health care. Don't worry about it. I've already worked that out.
It can happen in a prison cell. It can happen in a shower or a day room. A brutal gang rape that leaves the victim beaten to a pulp, physically and mentally.
How many guys?
It's about 45.
What?
45 guys the first night, yeah. It started about 7 p.m. And about every 5 guys, they would move me on from one cell to the next.
If you think that men who go to prison get what they deserve, imagine for a moment that the prisoner being raped is your son.
Don't you ever say, you know, listen, I don't need this. I don't need this. I've got my own money, and I'm paying for the privilege of being abused like this. Have you never had a moment when you said, am I crazy to do this?
If you're going to be put off or standoffish or feel that you can't withstand those kind of pressures, you shouldn't be in the presidency.
And you willing to bet that you're going to be the nominee of the Republican Party?
I still am, yes.
I'd like to get a piece of that.
What are your odds?
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Steve Croft.
I'm Leslie Stahl. Those stories and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes.
This Smithsonian Minute is brought to you by Trans World Airlines. We're up to something good.
In 1814, a lawyer watching the British fleet attack Fort McHenry at the entrance to Baltimore Harbor saw this flag still flying in the dawn's early light and was inspired to write the words that became our national anthem. The banner survived the bombs bursting in air, but not the request of some Americans who wanted a piece of it as a souvenir. Who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, and when did it become our national anthem?
The answer after this.
We'd like to take a minute to tell you about our history and where we've been. But we've got places to go.
The Star-Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key. It became our national anthem in 1931. I'm Colin Powell.
The Smithsonian, celebrating 150 years.
Relax. Take your shoes off.
I'm more comfortable like this.
Really?
Well,
millions of people suffer from toenail fungus, thick, brittle yellow nails.
you have no idea what's bothering me.
Oh, I've been in your shoes. You can do something about toenail fungus. Talk to your doctor or call 1-800-NAILS-90.
For info?
Uh-huh. About new treatments.
So I should talk with my doctor.
Or call 1-800...
NAILS-90. We're soulmates.
From Janssen Pharmaceutica, world leader in antifungal research.
This election year may, just may, turn out to be one where who the candidate's running mate is less important than who the candidate's wife is. There are no exit polls to measure it, but there's little doubt that Bob Dole's wife played a part in his strong showing yesterday in South Carolina.
The next First Lady of the United States, Elizabeth Dole.
Thank you so much.
Meet Elizabeth Dole.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
She's charming.
I like to get up close and have a conversation with you.
She's accomplished.
And I am planning to go back to the Red Cross as president when my husband's elected president.
She's nice.
You are so sweet, isn't she pretty?
And that matters when you're the candidate's wife. But this year, what seems to matter most is that she's not Hillary.
When she is First Lady, she will not be in charge of health care. She'll not be in charge of health care. She'll not be in charge of health care. Don't worry about it. I've already worked that out.
And it's one of Bob Dole's biggest applause lines, and one he repeats constantly, maybe because Elizabeth Hanford Dole has so many similarities to Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Hillary Clinton's one thing, but look at Elizabeth Dole.
Both were president of their college student governments. Both went to prestigious law schools, Mrs. Dole to Harvard. And both had independent, successful careers, though Mrs. Dole's is even more impressive. She was President Reagan's Secretary of Transportation, President Bush's Secretary of Labor, and now she's president of the American Red Cross. You've been compared to Hillary Clinton so many times. You both went to Ivy League law schools. You both have these incredible resumes. But people say, yes, that may be true, but Elizabeth Dole is not threatening. Do you know what they're talking about?
I'm not sure this is what it means, but what I've always felt is that women should be themselves, be feminine. In other words, you don't have to make yourself over in the image of a man. And I'm not saying at all that Hillary Clinton has done that. But my own view has been just be yourself.
We asked Doris Kearns Goodwin, the presidential and first lady historian, about Elizabeth Dole.
Unlike Hillary, she doesn't project the kind of anger or anxiety or jealousy toward her. And I think that's almost a chemical thing. Liddy Dole manages to camouflage that ambition and seem to be just sort of, oh, these things just happened to me. I just happened to become a cabinet member.
She's very soft around the edges. And she's very easy to take, and she's very friendly.
I think that southern charm goes a long way for a woman in making it not seem like she's some northern driving Yankee woman.
So what do you think of Hillary?
I think she's a very bright, capable person who is dedicated to what she believes is best for the country. I don't agree with her on a lot of the issues.
To make doubly sure she's not seen as another Mrs. Clinton, Mrs. Dole announced that if she's First Lady, she's going to work full-time at her job at the Red Cross.
So they gave me a leave of absence and said, when you become First Lady, come back as President of the Red Cross, which is literally three minutes from the White House.
How did you arrive at this decision that she keep her job at the Red Cross? And why did you come to that?
I think that's something she decided, and we talked about it, and I think it made a powerful statement. Now, not everybody agrees with it, but my view is it speaks volumes, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, the volumes are. And it seems pretty obvious when you talk about it on the stump. This is the un-Hillary. This is not going to be Hillary Clinton.
Well, I always joke about she'll not be in charge of health care.
Well, what do you think won't get done? What First Lady functions?
Knowing Elizabeth, they'll all get done.
What are the functions that a First Lady, I'm not talking about Hillary, but Nancy Reagan or Barbara Bush, what did they do that you're not going to do because you're going to be working at the Red Cross?
I think I'll be doing everything they've been doing, but also a full-time day job. I think I can certainly still plan state dinners, do the things that you're required to do.
Then she turned the tables on me.
Let me suggest this. We've said that we think there will be a woman president in our lifetime. Now, if you were interviewing the potential first spouse, the husband, would you be suggesting that he might not have time to continue his career if his wife's elected president?
Pat Buchanan once told me that it goes against God's will when women go out to work.
I cannot imagine what he's thinking. And as a matter of fact, there are women in the Bible who work.
She's been dealing with men's opinions of women ever since Harvard Law School. You were what, one of
24 women in a class of 550. But the first memory that I have, one of my male classmates walking up to me and saying, "Elizabeth, what are you doing here? What are you doing in this law school? Don't you realize there are men who would give their right arm to be here, men who would use their legal education?" Those were the first words that I heard, and of course that's forever emblazoned on my mind.
Did that make you a feminist?
You know, I'm not sure what that word means anymore.
Don't duck it.
I really don't know. If it means that you're, you know, you belong to a movement and you have sort of a prepackaged set of views that are handed to you from the political correctness club, then I'm not. But I'm a great believer in equal opportunity for women, to provide opportunities to them and to help train them so they can compete.
She grew up in the small town of Salisbury, North Carolina, the daughter of a successful florist. Her 94-year-old mother still lives in the house where Elizabeth was raised. They are best friends and talk on the phone every day, no matter where she is on the campaign trail.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey,
How are you doing today?
Oh, just fine.
Great.
Growing up in Salisbury, Elizabeth took ballet lessons and equestrian lessons and went to debutante balls.
but she loved politics almost from the beginning.
Actually from the 3rd grade when I was elected president of the Bird Club.
President of the Bird Club?
Of the Bird Club, right. That was my first political office.
At Duke, the 3rd grade president of the Bird Club was president of student government and the May Queen. Then she shocked her family by announcing she wanted to go to law school.
What I heard was that you told your mother you wanted to go to Harvard Law School, and she said, well, that's nice, dear. She stood up, went into the bathroom, and threw up.
It wasn't quite like that. I remember Mother and Dad saying, well, we really wouldn't advise it, but if that's what you really want to do, we'll support you. Then during the night, she was ill, and I had a feeling that maybe she was wondering what is happening to my daughter.
You made your mother
I
sick.
really did want you to come home and live next door.
Instead of coming home and living next door, she moved to Washington and started her career as a Democrat working for Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. She says she's always been conservative, although she didn't register as a Republican until about the time she married Bob Dole in 1975. She was 39, he was 52. Over the years, she worked for 5 different presidents, and it was during that period
I came to realize my life was threatened with spiritual starvation.
In the early 1980s, Mrs. Dole had a spiritual awakening. She tells Christian groups it came after she realized that her chronic perfectionism and workaholic habits had crowded everything else out of her life.
And it's very hard, you know, to try to control everything, surmount every difficulty, foresee every problem, realize every opportunity. That can be pretty tough on your family, your friends, your fellow workers, and on yourself.
I've been working on that, though.
What do you mean?
Well, she gets, I've been telling her, you don't have that much time in your life to do everything 100%. I mean, you do good work at 90% sometimes, or 95%. And I think she's much more relaxed now.
And then next we've got the interviews coming up. We've got all that material.
Well, we need just a couple minutes, so.
Okay.
She once wrote that her perfectionism was so consuming it was a tyranny.
I think we just jot it down real quick there.
And although she has worked on being more relaxed, aides say she still tends to rehearse everything, wake up in the middle of the night to make lists, and memorize briefing books. She always likes to be in control, and was when we were with her, except for a few times. I had agreed that if I slipped and called her by a childhood nickname she didn't like, we'd edit it out. When I inadvertently used that name on a car ride in South Carolina, she not only corrected me, she said, in effect, "Don't do that again," and then turned away coldly.
Go 96! Go 96!
Like all political wives, she doesn't like to hear about or read about any marital conflicts.
How would you describe your marriage?
Beautiful, beautiful.
I told her about an article from the front page of USA Today.
You seen it yet?
No, I haven't.
It says that in Iowa, I'll read it to you. Before he went out to face the cameras in Des Moines, he blew up at his wife Elizabeth when she urged him once, too often, to be upbeat.
It is not true. It's not true.
It never happened?
It did not happen.
Front page of today's paper?
I wish that the press would verify. It would have been nice if someone had asked me, wouldn't it?
I'm asking you, what do you know?
It
what
is
they're
not
referring
true.
to?
It is absolutely
not. Did
not.
he snap at you?
No, he did not.
Does stuff like this really get to you?
I think they're excesses. They're excesses.
Well, you know,
and the press has got to self-regulate, you know.
Pretty good stuff here.
Mm-hmm. But by all accounts, the Doles are a close couple. They don't make the rounds of the Washington party circuit. They like to rent videos and stay home at their 2-bedroom apartment at the Watergate.
Do you go out shopping?
Yes, I do. I do. And Bob does too, both of us.
Bob Dole goes to the grocery store?
Oh, yeah, he sure does. He goes to Safeway.
You never had kids?
No. Our view was, of course, we married later in life, so we felt if it happens, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too.
Whether or not Little Rock, Arkansas wants them back, they're going to get Bill and Hillary back in January '97. Thank you very much.
How much do you want this?
I think that Bob would be a great president. When we're talking about
Elizabeth Dole.
I want it for the country.
What
because
about
we're
you?
talking about the future of the free world.
What about you?
I'm
How
happy.
much do you want this?
I think that it's an opportunity to serve, to make a difference for people, and I look forward to that opportunity. It's a platform from which you can really make a difference.
But that kind of fishbowl life, do you really want that?
You know, as I say, I think we've been in that fishbowl for a long time. House, but I'm used to intense scrutiny.
Good, if you come with the package, I'll vote for you.
Thanks.
The only question is, why aren't you running?
Oh, no, he's got...
This is the third time she has put her career on hold to help Bob Dole campaign for president.
He'll be a great president.
She's his top salesperson, and by all accounts, even his. She tells his story better than he does.
My husband was born in a small town in Kansas.
She's so well-liked. They say she's a better candidate than you, sir.
Well, I think so. In fact, I got an anonymous note from a guy in Iowa saying, you stay in Washington, leave Elizabeth in Iowa, and you'll win.
Doesn't that sort of get at you a little bit when people say she's a better campaigner, she's a better communicator? You hear it all the time.
Right.
Well?
I think it's true.
And if all that campaigning doesn't pay off...
Could you support Pat Buchanan for president?
I'm not, again, going to speculate on anything other than Bob Dole being president, because that's where we are, and that's what I'm focused on.
Could you campaign for Pat Buchanan?
Leslie?
Yeah? Well, I just want to
No, really,
know.
I really don't want to speculate on what if, when I'm so convinced that Bob is going to win this race.
If he loses, how are you going to cope with that?
We're going to win. We're working very hard. We're focused, and I think Bob will be the next president of the United States.
There are those who say that if you weren't running this time...
She would be.
No, they say that she'd be on everybody's list for vice president.
That might be true. I mean, I really believe she has the ability, and she could do it, no doubt in my mind. And she has this way about her.
Would you ask her?
The two of us?
Yeah.
Well, we used to kid about it. We could close down the vice president's house. Look at the money we'd save. It'd be an economy move. The people would love it. And then I could work half-time, and she could work half-time. But I don't think the people are ready for another co-presidency.
If Bob Dole's wife is a big factor in his campaign, Steve Forbes' father is a big factor in his. And we're not just talking money. That story later, when Ed Bradley goes home to the farm with Mr. Forbes, Mrs. Forbes, and the 5 Forbes daughters.
Yes, another morning, another trek to the office. But in the new Mercedes E-Class, you're in one of the safest cars on the road. You're inside a protective cage with front airbags and, get this, side airbags. Heaven knows there are animals on these roads.
And they all lived happily ever after. Okay? One more, and Jack doing up the beanstalk. Oh, what big eyes you have. And then the mama bear says, somebody's been eating my part. No, I don't know who. You have to wait till the end of the story.
With MCI's friends and family, you save on every call to everyone.
All the better to see you with.
So you can talk a little longer.
No, I don't know how they lived in the shoe. It's a size 90, it's a big shoe.
MCI's friends and family. Real savings, real simple.
No, this is the last one. I'm serious.
I thought I knew it all till you came. Now you cry, and I don't know why. What are you thinking? Can you dream? So maybe I don't know it all. Like making the right decisions for your future. You're the helpless one, but I'm the one who needs a hand now.
There is more at stake now. Ask a Merrill Lynch financial consultant who can help with a plan and more ways to make the plan work than anyone else. The difference is planning. The difference is Merrill Lynch.
Can Nancy Travis be too perfect?
I can make love to you all night long.
Oh, how about just till 11?
She can when she's on tonight and Monday.
I swore I would never let these guys see me cry.
Since when?
Oh, shut up.
Now it's too perfect.
Kim and I are going to go down the store and get some ice.
Together, we're very much in love.
All new Almost Perfect tonight and at its new time Monday.
TV's Kelsey Grammer takes on his first big screen role.
God, I love this job.
See why he's taking the plunge tomorrow with Harry, Paula, and Mark on CBS This Morning.
If there are very young children in the room with you watching 60 Minutes tonight, we caution you that this next story is not for them. But if you've got a teenage son there in the room with you, this is a story that you should watch together. It is about the cruel and unusual punishment a young man like your son may have to endure if he gets locked up. What we're talking about is prison rape. No one really knows the true number of those victimized, and no one bothers to count, but estimates range from less than 1% of prisoners to a staggering 12%. It is something prison officials are reluctant to talk about, but not former Justice Harry Blackmun, who said in a Supreme Court decision, the horrors experienced by many young inmates border on the unimaginable. Stephen Donaldson says that he was once one of the young inmates Justice Blackmun was talking about. Fresh out of the Navy, Donaldson had been arrested back in 1973 at the age of 27 for trespassing at the White House, where he was attending a Quaker pray-in protesting the Vietnam War. When he refused to post a $10 bail, Donaldson was jailed, and he says that he was gang raped repeatedly.
A bunch of guys grabbed me. About 8 of them squeezed into this little 2-man cell. And, you know, they told me to strip my clothes off, and I refused to do that. And they grabbed me and started banging my head against the iron railing on the top bunk until I was dizzy, and then he started slapping me and hitting me in the face. Until I agreed to give in to them. They put a pillow over my head so that nobody could hear me screaming.
How many guys?
It was about 45.
What?
45 guys the first night, yeah. It started about 7 p.m. And about every 5 guys, they would move me on from one cell to the next. And I went down the whole tier, from the furthest away from the guard post, all the way down the tier.
Today, from his cramped New York City apartment, Donaldson runs Stop Prisoner Rape, an organization aimed at counseling inmates and educating the public about what can happen to inmates behind bars. Inmates like Chris Clugston. Clugston was 23 when he was sentenced in Florida to life in prison for murder.
When you arrive into the Rock, which is where I was at, you see people hanging out the windows that have big old muscles, veins popping out. They're all shouting cat calls and obscenities.
Like?
Choosing, fighting over who's going to be whose.
Chris says it wasn't long before someone chose him.
I was approached by 4 people, and I was raped repeatedly.
You plead with them?
Yeah, but that didn't do no good.
Michael Robtoy says he too was sexually assaulted, but for Robtoy it wasn't prison, it was in juvenile hall in California. At 16, Michael Robtoy, then a young, blonde, blue-eyed kid, was jailed after several residential robberies.
It took about 3, maybe 4 days after I got there before I was first approached. 3 inmates came into my cell, and I was physically assaulted and subsequently raped.
Why do men rape in prison? The experts say it's more about power than sex. The attitude is, look, I can dominate you, control you, degrade you. That it's a way to exert power when all other power has been taken away. The aggressor, the rapist, gains status in prison society. He's rarely, if ever, homosexual, and the victim is, in many cases, heterosexual as well. Who's the most vulnerable target?
It's the nonviolent, first of all. The easy target's the nonviolent, the young, the first-timers who don't know what's going on in the system. They're fresh fish, and they attract sharks.
It can happen in a cell, in a shower, a day room, or in some dark corner of the cell block. It can be one-on-one, or it can be a brutal gang rape that leaves the victim beaten, physically and mentally.
It's a bad situation because there aren't any good options, but we recommend fighting if at all you can. Of course, if you're in a shower and you get surrounded by 6 guys with knives, fighting isn't going to do you any good.
How can this go on? How does this go on under the watchful eyes of prison guards? Various inmates we spoke with claim that some guards simply look the other way, ignore the problem completely. And Stephen Donaldson says that inmates from around the country tell him the same thing.
You go to a guard, you go to a corrections officer, and you say, hey, this is what's going on. What did they say to you?
Mostly they'll say, take care of your own problems. Or they'll say, well, why don't you sit back and enjoy it? You know, they'll disbelieve it. Or if
What
they don't do
mean
that,
they won't disbelieve it. I mean, they've got to know that it's going.
well, they'll tell you that we don't believe it. They'll say, where do you have any evidence?
Ron Angelone, head of Virginia's prison system, says that's not so.
99% of correctional officers would just look you right in the eye and say that is a lie. We don't treat the people that we're responsible for that way.
Angelone has spent more than 25 years in corrections in 7 different states. He acknowledges that rape is a problem in prison, but he says the guards can only do so much.
Many people have the perception that in prison, every inmate is being watched by a correctional officer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's impossible to do that.
But what about the young man who needs protection most? The inmate who's unable to protect himself and is fearful.
You're 21 years old or 23 years old, you haven't had a lot of experience, you've committed a crime, and you're scared to death. And suddenly, there you are in a cell with somebody.
Well, here we are treating adults like they're children, and this is what bothers me. These are the same people that brought fear and nightmare into somebody's life. They come to prison after causing whatever mayhem they caused, and all of a sudden now we want to say, look at this poor person. You must make all the decisions for them, and if you don't, then you're at fault, not them. These are adults. These are adult men. They need to come forward and say something that will help them protect themselves.
But in fact, victims of prison rape rarely come forward, rarely report the episode to prison authorities, and inmates say that if they do, it will not necessarily gain them protection.
In prison, if you tell on somebody, you're labeled a snitch, and you're subject to losing your life.
I was told that, if I said anything, they'd kill me. I had already been severely beat up. So there was no doubt in my mind that, they could make true of their threats.
The problem is the code of silence that inmates live by, that they will not say anything against a fellow inmate, is the code that's hard to break. But individuals have to step forward.
But if doing it means I'm gonna be raped again, or I'm gonna get beaten up, in the final analysis, is it not the responsibility of the correction system itself, the prison itself?
It always is.
Unfortunately, most of the public doesn't care very much about the issue.
Dr. Helen Eigenberg teaches criminal justice and corrections at Eastern Kentucky University. Once she was a correctional officer herself.
We're in an era where it's lock them up and throw away the key, and so if they get raped, I think there's almost the underlying sentiment, well, good, maybe they won't come back to prison again if we make it awful enough.
If I have a young son who, either innocent or guilty, is going to be sent to the pokey, I can't imagine how a father would feel, or a mother would feel, about the possibility that his son is going to be fair game.
Well, I think that's why it's important to remember that a vast number of inmates who go to prison are there for drug offenses, for property offenses, that they're not all evil and mean people, and that they are real people who get victimized.
What's going to happen to all these guys when they get out? We put them back in the communities they came from, full of rage, convinced that their manhood has been taken from them, which is one of the big myths. And a lot of them feel that the only way they're going to get their manhood back is to be violent.
Michael Robtoy says he's a case in point. After being gang raped in juvenile hall, Robtoy says he received no counseling, and once released, he says he was overcome with shame and disgust.
I wasn't a man. They had taken my manhood from me.
Believing his attackers must have been homosexual, Robtoy says he went on a spree of homophobic violence that began at a carnival when he was approached and propositioned by a gay man.
I told him, let's go out back behind the trucks. And we was walking out there, and all the fear, disgust, and hatred was just boiling up inside of me. And when we got behind the trucks, I began to physically assault him. And I left him there laying in a pool of blood.
That violence continued and culminated almost a decade later in his killing a man. a murder that landed him back behind bars for life. Michael Robjoy believes that getting brutally gang raped back in juvenile hall turned him from a petty thief into a killer.
How many more Michael Robjoys are there going to be walking among the free world, seeking out?
But psychological trauma and violence are not the only potential consequences of prison rape.
We're no longer just talking about a sexual assault. What we're also talking about is the potential of transmission of AIDS.
AIDS can turn a 5 or 10-year sentence into a death sentence. In the last decade alone, AIDS deaths among inmates have increased by 1,300%. Today, there are more than 5,000 reported cases of AIDS inside prison walls. No one knows how many cases go unreported, because only a third of all U.S. prisons have mandatory HIV testing.
When everyone comes into the system, to start with, they should be tested for HIV. If they're found to be positive, they should have a separate prison for people that are HIV.
Why does Chris Clugston feel that way? Because he himself has been diagnosed HIV positive, the result, he believes, of those gang rapes. And worse, he says he shouldn't have been in prison to begin with.
I was innocent.
We hear that over and over from inmates, but in this case, the fact is that after Clugston had spent 11 years in prison for murder, evidence finally did emerge that cast significant doubt on his guilt. So significant that last year, Clugston was granted clemency and was released.
Let me understand. You went to prison for a murder you did not commit. You spent 10, 11 years in prison. You contracted HIV in a gang rape. You're out now, 35 years old, and what's your future?
They've taken everything, including my life, from me, and then I'm cut loose, I'm dying, I don't have anything. What is my future, Mike? I don't really have a future.
Is it conceivable, Director Angelo, that we are making too much of the incidents of rape in prison?
Absolutely not. New areas need to be addressed so that at some point we make it less and less. Nobody should be forced by someone else to have a sexual act committed against their will, especially while they're incarcerated.
Most people believe that people that are in prison deserve what they get. People just don't care. And that's the sad story. And that's what I would like people to see, is that they should care, because it could be you or your son that's in there next.
Nothing could stop former NBA star Johnny Moore. Except a deadly infection. Doctors said he'd go blind. Never have kids. Possibly die. With proper care and medicine we developed at Pfizer, Johnny got another shot at life. Pfizer, we're part of the cure.
374-90042.
Account code.
963-400.
Fax.
697-36.
Cellular.
889-26801.
Since the last thing you need is one more number to remember, MasterCard is developing the single-digit PIN code. Someday, a computer chip in your card will recognize your unique mark, so your personal identification code is personal. It's how the future will be paid for. MasterCard. It's smart money.
At an event that lasts just 2 weeks and features contests that last just 10 seconds, 24 hours is an eternity. Fortunately, UPS now guarantees overnight delivery as early as 8 a.m. from cities worldwide. If UPS can make urgent international deliveries to people who measure their accomplishments in seconds, think what they can do for those on a more relaxed schedule. UPS, worldwide Olympic sponsor.
60 Minutes will continue.
It's her daughter's first love.
He's very smart, so don't try to be clever.
On a very special sibling. Okay. Come on, get civilized. Next.
I faced a lot of tough political opponents on Capitol Hill, and I've always escaped without a scratch. But this time, I could be in real trouble.
New takes on Murphy, then. These guys can sell anything.
It's toilet paper with baking soda.
What do they think you're gonna bake?
Good Company premieres after Murphy Brown Monday.
As long as they don't make it Cajun style.
You're on CBS.
Our customers are talking about us.
I bought my cars for the last 22 years at Kelleher's because I like the way I'm treated, both by the sales and the service staff.
We researched from Ellensburg to Sunnyside before buying our new Ford Explorer. Kelleher Motors gave us the best trade-in and an exceptional price.
And the excellent service continued after the sale.
Stop in Ellensburg at Kelleher's and experience the service, value, and quality that is Kelleher Motors. Our family serving your family since 1911.
Money Smarts, sound financial strategies from Consumer Credit Counseling Service. Practical planning can alleviate your money woes. Know where your money is going. Make a list of your monthly expenditures. Look at the total realistically. Prioritize your debts by what is really pressing and what can wait to be paid. Develop a plan for action that is manageable. Then stick to that plan to reduce debt gradually. Money Smarts, sound advice brought to you by your local Consumer Credit Counseling Service, dedicated to your financial well-being.
TJ Close, weeknights on KIMA News at 6.
When wealthy magazine owner Steve Forbes announced he was going to run for president, a lot of people laughed. He had never held elected public office, had virtually no campaign organization, and was starting late. But the 48-year-old Forbes has money, lots of it. He's worth an estimated $450 million. And he has essentially funded this campaign out of his own pocket, spending some $25 million without taking federal matching funds. He's used his money and his flat tax message to propel him on this roller coaster of a presidential nominating campaign. Still, the odds are against him. So why does he keep going? To find out, we visited him off the campaign trail at Southdown, his 500-acre farm in Bedminster, New Jersey. It's the first time this intensely private man has allowed the media into his home. When you went into this, did someone sit down and say, look, you know what they're going to say about you, that you're Richie Rich, and you think you can buy this. You don't relate to ordinary people. You haven't had to live the way ordinary people live. Did someone prepare you for that?
I knew what kind of stuff they were going to throw. But if you believe that the opportunities are there to make a real difference, then you're obliged to get in the ring.
Why?
Because if no one else is doing it, then you're going to always tell yourself, could you have made that difference?
And because no candidate was carrying his message in the Republican Party, he felt an obligation to get in the race.
You're almost derelict if you don't take a crack at it.
Derelict?
Absolutely.
If you don't run for president, you're derelict?
Well, some people run to be something. Some run to do something. I want to do something.
To understand why Steve Forbes wants to be president, it helps to go back to his father, Malcolm Forbes, whom we met in 1981. He transformed the family business magazine, Forbes, into a publishing empire.
You do have a license, right?
He did it by turning himself into the magazine's symbol and chief salesman, promoting himself as the quintessential successful capitalist. To increase ad sales, advertisers and CEOs were invited into Malcolm's world. Balloon fests, motorcycle tours around the world, celebrity-studded parties at his New Jersey estate, and a 70th birthday extravaganza at his Moroccan palace.
Thank you very much. Our father's favorite saying is that the ultimate revenge is to live long enough to be a problem for your children. But so far, it's worked the other way. Happy birthday, Pop, and thank you for everything.
Steve and his three younger brothers were expected to help out with the business. Malcolm Forbes insisted they wear matching kilts and play the bagpipes on public occasions. As teenagers, the boys spent fall weekends on the company yacht, entertaining potential advertisers, fetching drinks, and making small talk. It wasn't always easy for Steve to live up to his father's expectations. You said that at times when you were young he was intimidating, particularly to you, the less you called yourself the less outgoing, less confident son.
Well, when you're young, you're wondering what your strengths are. I wasn't a very good student in school, not a great athlete and all that kind of stuff that most kids go through. And when you see a very strong and dynamic individual, you wonder, ultimately, how am I going to measure up?
Steve ultimately did measure up when he took over the magazine. His tough, canny business sense helped make Forbes from 1992 to 94 the #1 magazine in ad sales, a goal his father never achieved. If publishing was in the genes, so was politics. Malcolm Forbes twice was elected to the New Jersey State Senate, and it was on the campaign trail with him that Steve learned to love politics.
I think the fun part of it was going to the rallies, going to the picnics, get in trouble from time to time. He had once a rally in here near our house, 500 people. And as the cars came in, a friend of mine and I would go up and charge parking fees. And my father, even though he's a capitalist, did not cast a kind eye on that kind of entrepreneurship.
Malcolm Forbes had greater ambitions than the state Senate. Twice in the 50s, he ran unsuccessfully for governor of New Jersey. But what he really wanted to be was president. He called it the Holy Grail, the gold at the end of the rainbow. Why did your father want to be president?
I think he was excited by the possibility of doing the toughest job in the world. It wasn't why not? He thought he could do it. He was a leader.
And you?
In a very different way. Yes, if you believe in something, don't think about it, don't dream about it, try it.
It's his willingness to take risks that keeps Forbes going on the campaign trail. There are good days and bad, but whenever his family joins him, he seems more relaxed. Sabina Forbes is a reluctant campaigner.
Hi, Sabina Forbes, how are you?
She spends most of her time in New Jersey, where among other things, she helps oversee a herd of show cattle. She know more about this than you do?
She's taken care of it more than I have, yes.
And you had no background in this?
Absolutely no background. None. I was a city girl.
Sabina Forbes has been married to her husband for 25 years, the daughter of a minister. They met at a debutante party when they were both 23. He offered her a cigar. She took it. And 5 weeks later, they were engaged.
It was very quick.
Your move or his?
His move. Definitely his move.
That didn't seem a little quick for you?
I think when we met, we knew that was it.
How do you feel about him spending that kind of money, your money as well?
No, it's his money. It's not my money. If he can change things, why not?
Would you be the kind of first lady that Hillary Rodham Clinton has been? Shaping policy?
No, I would not. I've never been involved in Steve's business decisions. I've always been there to support him. I have not been involved in decisions in the campaign either.
Mrs. Dole says if her husband is elected president, that the next day she'll go across the street to the Red Cross and go to work.
I have 5 children, and I still have an 8-year-old. I would like to be in the White House with my daughter.
Hey. We met up with the 5 Forbes children on the campaign trail in New Hampshire. First came 8-year-old Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Laura Forbes.
Then 16-year-old Moira.
How are you?
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
All right.
Hi,
Roberta, one of the twins, 22.
Catherine.
Good to see you. 19-year-old Catherine.
Hello, Sabina.
And finally, the other twin, Sabina, also 22. How did he prepare you for this?
He told us what to expect, that he would be criticized, that it's a difficult process, that we wouldn't see him that much. People might say things to us, and that we just have to be prepared for the worst.
What was your reaction when it started to get a little nasty? You heard people in the press say that he was nerdy, charismatically challenged. I mean, you say, hey, that's my dad.
He's definitely not charismatically challenged. But the thing is, when people start attacking him, it's kind of like, you know, it's a very positive thing in a way because it means that they're taking him seriously.
There's just this whole side of Dad that these people sometimes overlook or haven't seen before, and I think, you know, charismatically challenged or he's nerdy is not at all the way to describe him.
Your father's talked about the training that he had to take as a child, learning to play the bagpipes, memorizing all of the names of the guests who would be on the boat, serving. serving drinks and taking care of their needs while they were on the boats. Have you all had that same kind of thing?
Yes.
We weren't lucky enough to learn how to play the bagpipes, but we were taught to listen to what other people had to say to make sure that they're comfortable, and when you get older, it comes in very handy.
And that Forbes training has come in very handy on the campaign, even for the youngest. And Elizabeth, has it become a chore for you now?
No, not at all. You do something, you love it, and if you don't love it, you learn to love it.
Did you love this in the beginning, or did you learn to love it?
I learned to love it.
Because abortion has become one of the major issues in the campaign, we asked the older girls, after 8-year-old Elizabeth left, what they would do if any of them became pregnant.
The first thing that would happen is, we'd give each other a lot of hugs. And it may sound kind of corny or whatever, but we've come from a family that no matter what, you have to be supportive of each other.
And you would feel comfortable going to both parents?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What advice do you think they would give you?
To keep the child. To take responsibility for our actions. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, Roberta and I are adults, and
I am too.
I know. Sorry. Sorry. And I don't. It's if we make a mistake, we get through it together.
Forbes admits that he's made mistakes in the early primaries, especially with his multi-million-dollar negative ad campaign, and the press has been tough on him.
When you gain traction, when you're taken seriously, that's when it really starts to fly. At the same time, too, I think we went through that inevitable period in a candidacy where the media takes a real hard look, where they're going to give you no benefit of the doubt. They want to see what kind of person you are. They want to find out everything about you, and it hurt.
In Iowa, where the Christian Coalition was a force, do you think that the reports about your father's alleged homosexual involvement hurt you with those people?
I have no idea whether it did or not. We felt that something like that might happen.
Did you ever talk about those reports with your father?
No. I always felt that he had his life, he respected our life, and I think my brothers and I and my sister and I always felt that if our children felt about, just take my children, if they feel about me the way we felt about our father, when I die, I'll die a very happy and peaceful man.
So you talked about it with your brothers and your sister, but not with your father?
Very, very rarely. Very rarely. My father had his life, we respected it, and one of the things that I think most Americans appreciate, even if they don't get credit for it, is you don't have to approve of something that someone does to have compassion and love.
Despite the uncomfortable questions, the loss of privacy, the ups and downs at the polls, Forbes says he won't quit. Don't you ever say, listen, I don't need this. I don't need this. I've got my own money, and I'm paying for the privilege of being abused like this. Have you never had a moment when you said, am I crazy to do this?
No, you have moments when you say, how do we make it to the next contest? How do we turn this thing around? But, as I say, if you're going to be put off or standoffish or feel that you can't withstand those kind of pressures, you shouldn't be in the presidency.
So you just keep taking hits and you'll keep right on going?
It's the only way, and I have no regrets about it. I'm going to continue to do it as long as I think I can do it.
How long will that be?
I know most pundits have said that this campaign's not going to work. I still believe it can work. That's what keeps me going.
You a betting man?
I'm a betting man. And even though the odds are long, you don't move things without taking great risks. And I'm willing to do it for this mission.
And you willing to bet that you're going to be the nominee of the Republican Party?
I still am, yes.
I'd like to get a piece of that.
What are your odds?
If you use pain relievers, you should know about this warning on Tylenol labels. If you generally consume 3 or more alcohol-containing drinks per day, you should consult your physician for advice on when and how you should take Tylenol and other pain relievers. While for the vast majority Tylenol is safe, some evidence suggests that if you regularly consume 3 or more drinks per day, taking certain doses of Tylenol over several days may, in some cases, affect your liver. Before taking any pain reliever, ask your doctor if Advil may be a safer choice.
Tropicana Pure Premium is so fussy, it rejects over 140 million oranges a year. Great to know that, isn't it, Miss? Miss? Tropicana Pure Premium. Perfect.
Every time you make a long-distance call, AT&T sends out a signal to check the quality of the line, automatically routing around trouble before you've even finished dialing. Because at AT&T, we don't just say your calls get through. We guarantee it.
Linda, I'd like to bounce an idea off you.
AT&T, for the life of your business.
You need to diverse.
While everyone else is telling you which funds to buy,
Small cap funds.
I'd be looking at the Pacific Rim.
here's a tip on how to buy them. Mutual Fund One Source from Charles Schwab. The funds you want in one place, all with no loads. If your fund doesn't say this, maybe you're making life too complicated. Call now for 6 months of our Mutual Fund Select list free.
What is it that a great many of you have written asking Andy Rooney to explain?
A great many of you have written asking me to explain the flat tax about which we're hearing so much. Let me read you from one of the very interesting letters I received. Dear Andy, it reads, please explain the flat tax. Perhaps it would be best if we began by looking into the word flat itself to better understand the phrase flat tax. The word has been used a great many different ways over the years. This, for example, is known colloquially as simply a flat. It is, of course, a flat tire. A flat is produced when a nail punctures one of the rubber wheels on your car and the air in it escapes through the hole made by the nail. When the air goes out of a bubbly drink, we call that flat. This beer has been standing here for an hour and it's flat. These are flat feet. Young men who had these couldn't get into the Army because the air had gone out of their arches. In 1938, there was a very popular song about someone named Flugie who was flat-footed and had a floy-floy. This building, one of the first skyscrapers in New York City, is known as the Flatiron Building, so called because it is shaped like one of these, a flat iron. This is flat silver, this flat bread. Flowers are started in flats, like these. For what reason, I don't know, paint that isn't shiny is called flat. This is flat black. If you want to describe something as being very, very flat, you say it's as flat as one of these, a pancake. If someone doesn't have any money, he's flat broke. When a singer can't quite make a high note, he is known as flat.
For the land of the free.
Now, many of you are probably saying to yourselves, what the hell does all this have to do with a flat tax? I still don't understand it. Well, of course you don't understand it. The flat tax isn't something you understand. It's a campaign issue.
In the mail these past several weeks were letter after letter from Turkish Americans incensed by the way we reported the war between the Turkish government and the Kurdish rebels in their midst. What many of them pointed to was this magazine page that we used to introduce the story. One of the letters said, "Your use of the Turkish flag, our most sacred national symbol, juxtaposed with a skull was scandalous." Their point is well taken. In using that graphic, we were not as sensitive as we could have been and should have been. I'm Ed Bradley. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes. And now for a look at what's on the CBS Evening News on Monday. Dan?
On tomorrow's CBS Evening News, some of the world's most deadly chemical weapons. Too dangerous to keep, too dangerous to destroy. We'll take you inside this plant to find out if anyone really can behead the chemical weapons dragon. Tomorrow on the CBS Evening News.
The fruits of your labor should be yours to enjoy, even if you have high cholesterol and heart disease. Right now, your doctor has treatment plans that could save your life. Call 1-800-MERC-94 for your free guide to help you survive high cholesterol. And talk to your doctor.
There are places in every town where you can find a great meal. Tonight at Joe's Grill, for instance, you'll find lemon herb steak. While over at Caparelli's are serving savory steak and pasta. On the menu at Chez Ralph's is honey Dijon beef stir fry. And the chef's special at Arlene's Place is beefy chili mac. To enjoy fine dining like this, all you need is 30 minutes or less and you've got a table at one of the best steak houses in town. Beef, it's what's for dinner.
At a height of 19 feet, the awkward-looking giraffe would appear to be at a disadvantage in the jungle. But in fact, his height is his greatest asset, allowing him to graze where others can't, easily survey the land, and take gigantic strides when threatened by predators. The preceding has been brought to you by the all-new Nissan Pathfinder, now with a higher stance and more headroom.
Alan Alda returns to television.
So dependent on women.
I happen to love women.
And his marriage is on the line.
What you think means a lot to me.
Time you gave it up, Dad. You seem very confused. Don't screw this up, Jake.
Can any of these women save him from himself?
I need a miracle, and I need it fast.
They're Jake's Women, a world premiere tonight.
Where you get your news and who you get it from. One of the most important decisions you make every day. For straight talk and hard facts, turn to the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
It's her daughter's first love.
He's very smart, so don't try to be clever.
On a very special sibling.
Okay.
Come on, get civilized. Next.
It's the all-new CBS double feature. 2 movies on 2 nights. First Tuesday, they thought they found paradise.
One of them tried to kill me.
Now Barbara Eden, William Shatner, Morgan Fairchild, and Roddy McDowell are all trapped on Dead Man's Island. Then Wednesday, the daughter she loves, the man she trusts.
Remember that night that you kissed me?
Could she ever imagine the unthinkable?
What's wrong?
Beverly D'Angelo, Rob Estes, Sweet Temptation. It's all on the CBS double feature Tuesday and Wednesday.